The robot revolution is upon us. In the very near future, we're going to be seeing thousands of robots in our everyday lives. Some will be purpose-built and are best in a non-mobilized fixed location. Others are best if they can travel on wheels and move freely, while others still are best if they can have the ability to walk in a bipedal humanoid form. Today, we're going to talk about robot locomotion, the various ways robots might be designed to move around, with a particular focus on the wheeled robots. This is going to be a lot of fun as we look at 8 different bots. To help us unpack all of this, we're joined today by Scott Walter. Scott has co-founded 2 robotics companies in the past and has now been doing research on the new bots coming to market. Thank you, Scott. Welcome again.
Thank you for having me back, Herbert.
All right. So we've done many videos on bots, and we've pointed out the differences between the humanoid form, why some companies like Tesla Bot is really focusing on the humanoid form. But there's bots everywhere. You yourself co-founded 2 companies in the past where you had these big industrial arm kind of bots in the factory. They don't need to move, except, they move, but they don't have to move around the location. They're fixed robots. Now we're starting to see all these wheeled robots. If I think of Star Wars, I think of C-3PO, but I also think of somebody like R2-D2. So today you're going to tell me what environments is best to have the wheeled robots or even different ways of moving. So why don't you set the stage and tell me why locomotion and how these bots move are important?
Okay, well, I mean, the first thing sort of depends upon the application. That, a lot of industrial robots are fixed because they're doing a process which is right in front of them and they're sized kind of appropriately for whatever it is that they need to do. And they don't need to go anywhere. So they're just bolted down to the ground and move around. And then there are these other robots that are literally called mobile robots because their task is to fetch things and move them long distances. So they have to be able to move around. And you want the most efficient way to be able to do the locomotion. And that's usually to make sure they have wheels. And then you have like kind of this other question that sometimes you need to have like workspace enlargement. So if I'm working in an environment right here and I can reach here and there pretty well, but I've got to reach something way over there in order to finish my job, I've got 2 options. One is I have to have a longer arm or the ability to kind of move my base over to be able to get what I need and come back. So sometimes if you don't want to make the arm bigger or the bot bigger, you want to give it a certain amount of mobility to move around. And that mobility may be easier accomplished with a legged vehicle or maybe with a wheeled vehicle, something like that. So a lot of it will come down to workspace enlargement. The other thing you want to remember is also to make sure that they're deployable. So a lot of these robots that are bolted down, that's the only place they can do their task. And if they need to go somewhere else, it's very hard to kind of unbolt them and move them to somewhere else. You need to put them on a mobile platform or do something else. It might be a bit complicated. But if you have a bot that's also sort of flexible enough to be able to work in one station and when it's done, go over somewhere else and be able to do that, that gives you sort of another advantage. Now, it doesn't mean it has to be really speedy to get over there. It just has to be, it's very easy to be able to redeploy it to a different location and put it down there because it's not bolted down on the ground. And again, there are a lot of operations that these humanoid robots are going to be going into, which requires a certain amount of movement to be able to reach behind and grab something and come in there. So it may be a kind of a confined workspace, but still the mobility is very good. So those are some of the reasons. And the other thing you want to do is that however you decide to choose the way it's going to locomote around, you want to make sure it has a small enough footprint, so it's kind of a joke of like, why do you want to have the legged versus wheels? Because usually the legged ones have a literally smaller footprint. And that's used in an engineering sense when we talk about how much room something is going to take up. What's the footprint it's going to have when we put that thing down on the floor and takes up. And so if you have a wheeled bot, typically they might be a little bit wider and require a bit more room to maneuver around. So they may not be adequate for that particular task. They will have advantages maybe on speed and energy consumption and everything else. But there's always a reason that you have to optimize. And today we're going to look at all the different ways that we can have robots locomote. But before we go into that, I just want to ask you something here, Herbert, and that is kind of lost in the news over the weekend. Something happened that's happened sort of twice in the past 2 weeks, and that is the world marathoning record was broken. So about 2 weekends
yes, I saw
ago
this.
in
yes,
right in Berlin, Tinks Asifa of Ethiopia broke the women's world record by running under 2:12. So she's in like 2:11:53 in Berlin, which is phenomenal. For those who don't know, that's like almost a 5-minute pace per mile. And then this past weekend in Chicago, Kevin Kipton of Kenya almost broke 2 hours. He did 2 hours and 35 seconds. Now, 2 hours has been broken, but not officially, because it was a special course to be able to prove it can be done. That was done by Eliud Kipchoge about, I think, in 2019. He did like 1:59:40. And that was like a closed course, 4 laps in Vienna around there where they set that up. And he had like the previous record before that. Now, why do I kind of bring this up? What's this got to do with robots and locomotion? And a lot of it is the reason these records are starting to go down is because the advent of something called super shoes. These are these running shoes that begin to give the runners some additional boosts and some advantages in the running that, yeah, they may be a little bit controversial, but we kind of want to look into it because remember, they can do everything except actually put on rollerblades or roller skates, you know, for the most part. They're not allowed to use wheels, but they're trying to find some other way to do it. Because obviously you can cover the distance of a marathon very quickly with a bicycle with very little effort compared to running. But we want to see what it's like legged versus actually having wheeled. But there's one other athlete I want to bring up that in the early 2000s, you may remember. His name was Oscar Pistorius from South Africa.
Yep.
And he was born without lower legs, and he was known as the Blade Runner because he had these special prosthetic legs that were carbon composite that were like these blades that went around, and he could run fast. I mean, so fast. He was very close to like the world records of abled runners. So it became kind of controversial. It's like, should this even be allowed? Because it's almost like the advantage, but there's nothing. It's basically just kind of a spring. So all the energy is coming from him. So he's not having any sort of outside energy source. It's not mechanized in any way, but it shows that there are ways of being able to change running gaits to be able to take the energy and bring it back to be able to make things more efficient. So we're going to kind of come into that later when we start looking at what are things we could do to make some of these humanoid robots more efficient? Because, you know, the foot design, it's like they're not putting any focus on there. And I'm sort of wondering, it's like, well, maybe we should start putting the super shoes on these things. And is that going to change?
They will.
And if we do,
sure.
What would we have to change in the bot? Right. Is it going to be a mechanical issue or is it going to be an AI issue? So
okay,
that's
let's take a look at the let's take a look at the wheeled robots. One thing I will tell you is that as we watch all these videos of these wheeled robots and the non-wheeled, I'm very, very shocked at how dexterous, is that the right word? Like how they can go upstairs, they can climb things and jump down, and they can do much more than you think. And like, you know, they don't just need a flat surface. So let's take a look at this one, which is very impressive, ETH, and it can take and transform many different kinds of forms. So let's take a look.
Yes. Yep. So it can actually go downstairs. You could probably do it with a Tesla, but I wouldn't recommend it.
It can almost walk like a dog.
Yes.
It can stand up, and 2 wheels or 2 legs.
So quite impressive. And it's kind of a valid question. I think the answer is it doesn't have hands. And, you know, after seeing the ETH robot and a few other of the bots we're going to see, I sort of changed my viewpoint a little bit on the idea of having wheeled bots, because there were some others that came out which they were kind of clunky. They were just like the wheels were there with casters and they kind of moved around. Like I said, they had kind of a large footprint and it wasn't very convincing. And of course, we'll probably queue up on a little bit the Boston Dynamics attempt a few years ago with the stretch bot that also had kind of a very big footprint. And because they really couldn't get the balance right and they had a counterbalance and everything else, it turned out to not be a very practical solution, which sort of made it seem like, well, you know, maybe the whole idea of putting them on wheels isn't such a good idea. Now, part of the reason you might say, well, maybe if they had like smaller wheels or something like that, that might make it a little bit easier, but smaller wheels aren't that good at going over a lot of different kinds of terrain. So you want a wheel of a certain size. And the question is, do you want it as big as a bicycle wheel, or do you want it as small as like a rollerblading wheel? Now, this ETH bot, as we'll see here, when it first was being taught to walk, they used a lot of machine learning algorithms to be able to come to this ability for it to have great ability and balance and not fall over. And as you can see, it's a purely legged bot without any wheels on it. So the first thing it did is they taught it to walk. And then everyone has said, why didn't they put wheels on Optimus? And I thought, well, there's really no need. There's more complexity and everything else to the bot, more additional cost, and you probably don't really need it for the task they're looking at Optimus doing. And then you go ahead and see that now that they've learned how to walk, they said, let's go ahead and put wheels on it. And it can not only use the wheels the way you would expect, it can walk on the wheels because, of course, they can lock the wheels into place. And now you have, in a sense, more or less just a big pair of shoes that it's wearing that allows it to go around. And they've done a very clever selection on the size of the wheels they had. Now, if they decided to go with like a very small wheel, it would not perform very well. It wouldn't have the speed and everything else. And if they went for a really big wheel, like a bicycle wheel, you wouldn't really be able to go upstairs very well because the wheel would be too big compared to the stairs. So they came up with wheels that are about the size of a stair. So you can actually place it on one of the levels of the stair and not worrying about it wanting to slide down or fall off. So you can kind of push up on the stair as you would if you were walking. What's remarkable about this is not so much the mechanics, but what they've done in the machine learning, the control system. And there are a lot of videos out there. I encourage everyone to look at some of the videos that come from ETH explaining how they did the training and that they really are taking the entire body into account. They talk about some of the traditional algorithms you could use by looking at one arm at a time and what's this arm doing, everything else. And the body is just not able to compensate for all the situations it would be in, especially rough terrain or if it gets bumped or something else. And the algorithms that they're coming up with is giving it extremely good mobility and balance. So it just won't fall over and it can walk on any sort of terrain. So it's rather remarkable what they're able to do. Now, if we look at this bot here, this bot's going to look awfully familiar in that this is from Unitree, which is a company in China. And it seems to be doing the same thing as the ETH bot, and that's mainly because they are using the same algorithm, the same approach. So it looks like ETH is licensing the algorithms for this particular bot. And they are a research institute, so that's part of their charter is to be able to do the fundamental research and people take advantage of it. So these go into a lot of detailed explanations of how they've kind of come up with the solutions, trying to figure out how to make these quadrupeds walk around with a lot of simulation and a lot of iteration. So it requires an awful lot of machine learning to get to that point, but we know that's how AI works. Is that you have many, many generations of it, and then eventually you get to something which has, what just seems like natural kind of movement, the ability to handle any sort of environment that you're going to expose it to and handle it really quite well. So we can see that we expect that from these quadrupeds, and there are kind of two robot dogs out there right now. There's the famous one from Boston Dynamics, which just walks around. We've seen a lot of that. And there's some other examples of them that are like them, but just with wheels. So they go around. In one case, the Boston Dynamics bot is pretty good for being able to go upstairs and go into areas that's very difficult to go with a typical wheeled vehicle. And these other bots that are kind of set up with wheels are very traditional. They're not really trying to walk. It's just like, oh, we're going to use wheels for mobility, which means they can survey around in the parking lots and other kind of flat areas, but can't really go into the factory and upstairs or anything else. So some of those will be limited. Those bots there, it's like the best of both worlds right there. So they can move around very quickly. You can see they can go up and down stairs if necessary. The ETH bot even has a fifth arm they can put on there. They mount on there to be able to open and close doors and be able to do simple tasks like, even open up a dishwasher door and a few things like that. And they've also been showing the machine learning algorithms for that. So these bots are becoming, let's say, pretty useful. And what's most interesting about these wheeled bots now is how they kind of are able to transform themselves into something a little bit different. So in some cases, you'll see some videos where these two-wheeled bots will come around and almost align the wheels up that it becomes like a bicycle, and it's able to go down a really narrow path and maintain the balance. So the control systems of these things are just becoming wild. And because of that, it just opens up this possibilities frontiers of putting wheels onto vehicles that you, or onto bots that you thought, I'm not really going to put it on there. So that question has come up many times. Everyone says, why don't they put wheels on Optimus? Or why don't they put like Heelys or something like that? If you remember, I think back in the, in the teens or aughts, there were those shoes that you could get that actually had little wheels in there that would pop out. So it would become kind of like your wheels would suddenly become roller skating around. Those wheels are very small and were only good on very, very flat surfaces. You start taking out something a little bit rougher, it doesn't work well. So you want to have something with slightly bigger wheels on them. That doesn't quite make sense for something like Optimus. You want to have something that's a little bit bigger. Right now, it's like, well, it's just added complexity. You've got to put motors down there. It's going to be additional mass. But it might be one of those things in the future you start to think about. It's like, well, do we just turn the feet actually into wheels and then lock them down? And that becomes sort of like the new shoe for Optimus instead of the normal. It could be. And then you do. So that's all a possibility. And it depends upon the role. So if it's Optimus has to like go zipping down the factory to pick up things and come back and forth, that makes sense. If it's Optimus just kind of sitting right here, it may not make sense. It may be that it's okay for being able to do that. So yeah, I've changed my viewpoint just because looking at what they're coming up with is rather interesting. And we've got a couple others that have some strange configurations as well.
Yeah. So my observation is that, like you said, there's different use cases where it's better. So you can see the dog with the feet. It can handle, the mass better. It can kind of pick and choose, but it's very slow, right? It's like to go. Whereas the wheeled robot can just fly. It can jump over things. It can climb upstairs really nicely. So if you want speed and you need to move around, let's put some wheels on it. But you said also that you need to do both. And so you need to train it how to walk anyways, and then do the wheels. And then you can do the thing where it becomes a humanoid robot. I wanted to show you were talking about Boston Dynamics. And this is
yes,
their bot, and they chose to go with the feet.
Yes,
here, but it's meant to be indoors, right? It's meant to be both indoors and outdoors, and that was one of the reasons they did that, right? All terrain.
Yeah, all terrain. And so the feeling is that legged creatures are able to go around really rough terrain a lot better. And it seemed like the natural thing. But I bet right now they're scratching their heads and they're probably designing like their next generation to put wheels on it after seeing what ETH and Unitree have been doing.
Oh,
because
you think
would make sense also from a power consumption point of view. Why not? If it has to travel a long distance, I bet it would save a lot of energy. So why not just turn those those paws into wheels? It has almost the same capabilities, except that it doesn't have that. And you would still be able to go up the stairs. So I would not be surprised if they would be considering doing something like that as well.
Okay. Let's take a look at another bot. This is Ascent Pro. I'm going to turn off the music here. And they're just another variations of the wheels. They went with a bicycle wheel size. Yes. It is funny how to maintain balance, their butt has to make weird movements.
Yes.
This does not look impressive. I mean,
but you see the wheel size is almost a bit too big for the stairs. You see, that's what I was talking about. So you need to get a little bit smaller to make it easier to go in there. Now, I think I've seen a couple of these where it does get weird that the two wheels, rather than being out like that, will almost go right next to each other like a bicycle and go zipping along really quickly. And that's just kind of wild to see that they can configure themselves that way and have that kind of balance. And it's all these control systems. It controls, yes. And again, it's like Spot can only go so fast. So you can see that goes a lot faster. And it looks to me like we were talking last week about the delivery bots that are, getting vandalized and everything stolen. And you know why? Because they're so slow. And we kept on talking about, is it going to be this fight or flight kind of thing? What do they do to prevent that to happen? If you can go as fast as those things, you don't have to worry about it, just zip on down. The problem is whether they're allowed to go on sidewalks or streets or something like that. But for a delivery bot, that makes way more sense. Yeah.
So that one did not impress me, but here's another example that is interesting. So it's another two-wheeled bot, but it has arms. Okay. It's not as bulky, tiny little wheels. And those are too small, probably. You can't go around terrain. It's indoors,
but it
but look at that.
might
It
be
can
able to go
grab things.
upstairs. Yes, yes. It looks like, in some kind of warehousing, and it's just clever the way it transforms that it can be small, it can go underneath things. Incredible balance. I mean, it almost looks like they took a couple of skateboards and said, hey, what if we just configure it this way, make a bot out of it? It's really kind of a clever idea.
Yeah,
And its
not
simplicity.
impressive.
So it's thinking out of the box. What I like is that these people are starting to come up with innovative ideas that's going to be more specialty. So it's probably specialized for certain things. It's reminiscent a little bit of the stretch bot from Boston Dynamics. And of course, what Boston Dynamics was trying to do with the stretch box is they were trying to do a real application that you have a pallet with boxes of certain size, so they have to have a certain size volume. This one can do some of the things that Stretch was able to do, but not as much because it just can't reach up that high. I mean, it can do a certain amount, but I'm just not sure it's really going to be able to do palletizing kind of applications. It might be able to do some very simple fetching applications, and is a great, say, R&D platform right now. And that's where it's coming from. It's coming out of one of the Fraunhofer Institutes in Germany, which is known for a lot of basic research. So interesting what you can do with wheeled bots. What the control systems can do now is wild as far as control and balance. So it allows you to come up with these configurations that are truly innovative.
What do you think about the R2D2? So
Yeah.
R2D2 seems to have a combination of both. Right, it has the wheel. It has wheels, which doesn't look that. I don't think it really works, honestly, if you look at it. But then it also kind of have the ability to do the walking too.
Yes.
I'm just
Yes.
trying to
Yes.
pull
So
up the picture here.
it works in science fiction. Whether it would work in reality is hard to say. So it had kind of the two, and it gave you the impression it was able to walk up the stairs, and you'd see it doing this, and the next thing you know, it's like at the top of the stairs. I'm not sure it really could, but then again, it's like movie magic. You can do whatever you want. But that is, again, the idea of combining legs with wheels, depending upon what the use case is. So I would not be surprised we see that in there. And then the question is, what do you do in the middle before you decide to go that way? So we know when we look at Optimus has very flat feet. They just come down, and it's like a flat piece of metal, and it seems that it's very plodding. And it's not just Optimus. If you look at the other humanoid bots that are out there, from Fourier and also from Unitree, they also have sort of the same kind of feet on the bots that you would think is not very efficient. You'd expect, well, why don't they have a toe box or something to allow you to get that little bit of a toe off? And part of it is they're not meant to run yet. If you were running, you would want to have that kind of heel toe kind of thing to be able to give you the extra speed and help you with the energy. And it may be that it's just to reduce the overall complexity and the cost, and trying to get the balance under control.
To more than 400
minutes. Want a very stable platform on the ground with the feet. But
this is
doesn't mean that they wouldn't. Yes, exactly. So again, the feet are not very impressive. It's like, considering everything else, you look down there, it's like, why don't they have something a little bit more there? Why doesn't Optimus have something a little bit more there? And I think they will. And I think it's because they need to learn how to be able to walk with the feet they have right now. And then,
sorry about that. Yep.
Then the same thing like with ETH, they learn to walk first on normal paws, and then they put the wheels on it once they were able to get to that stage. So you might see some changes happening to the feet going down the road. And the question is whether it's going to be sort of, active or responsive kind of feet. And so what I mean by that is, are they going to put some actuators or something like that to make the toes be able to flex and push off? Or is it going to be something that's more compliant with a spring that absorbs a little bit of energy and gives it back? And that would be a little bit easier, because then you don't have to worry about actually being able to energize the whole thing and the control that's going to go along with it. The other route they can go is, again, what Super Shoes are doing now. So the Super Shoes basically took the idea of what the Blade Runner had, which were these carbon composite shaped kind of springs. It was kind of a J hook that they had in there, and putting that into the sole of a shoe to be able to absorb the energy and to give it back at the right time. Now, the thing about Super Shoes is that they may give you anywhere from 1 to 2.5% improvement in your speed. But they found that a lot of runners that first put them on may suddenly get injuries. So you have to actually learn to run in the shoes correctly. And a lot of the shoes are really designed for some of these elite runners and their running style to make sure they get it right. And you have to make sure you adapt to it. Now, part of the reason to having shoes and everything else and why I think they went into it is that many times, if you are a runner, you're buying shoes more or less to protect you against the impact on the ground, because that causes injury. You know, stress fractures in your feet, you know, the ankle or knee problems, something like that. So if you have a bad pair of shoes, you're going to get injuries. These humanoid robots, as far as I'm concerned, they have a bad pair of shoes. So they're kind of be coming down. And over a long period of time, they're going to be seeing their own joints wear out. They're going to be seeing their own kind of issues coming in because of the repetitive nature of what's going on, as well as the floors that they're going on. I'm not sure the floors are just going to like this kind of clack, 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 clack going on there. So you want to come up with something that's going to be able to, you know, also not damage the surfaces that you're on.
Or make
so
noise.
they're going to want to come up with something. And then you might be thinking along, well, let's design the super shoes for the bots. You know, we just don't go out and buy a pair of super shoes and put them on there, because you remember these shoes are really designed for certain kinds of runners and different types of running styles, and they're designed for humans. But there's no reason why some of these people at Nike couldn't look at these bots and say, yeah, we'll design a shoe for you. Just go ahead and let's just do some tests in the lab. Let's see what your stride looks like. This is what we'd recommend. And then you would put that in. And it's a very, you know, it's one of these systems that's very passive. You don't have to worry about putting anything in. It just kind of works for you, because it's going to absorb some of that energy, that impact energy for you. And then it's going to release it in a particular way to help you with the particular gait get more energy out of it. Now, about all you have to do is you don't have to change the mechanics of your system. You just have to teach it how to actually wear that pair of shoes. So the AI would go through and then figure out, what do we have to do to adapt the bot to actually take advantage of this and maybe get, you know, an extra 2-3% out of it, which may not seem like a lot. You know, when you're running a marathon, that could be a minute or two, which is the difference between breaking a world record or not breaking a world record sometimes. But it could also save a lot in, like, say, wear and tear in the bot, a little bit of energy usage, and you know, just being able to maybe make it go a little bit faster, so it can walk a little bit quicker.
Okay. I mean, so clearly there's these bots that walk on feet. Some of them you want it to run. You probably want feet if you wanted to be able to do anything that a human can do, walk in every environment. Then you've got the wheeled robots, as we talk about, the small wheels, the big wheels. But there's some bots that are doing just fine on a warehouse floor. So if we take a look at Kiva, which is what Amazon uses, they don't have to be fancy. If we just take a look at what they're doing here.
And this is amazing.
You know, these
so
are
the
just
Kiva bot.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So the Kiva bot will probably remind you of like a Roomba. You know, it's a souped up Roomba. It has the same mobility. And it's able to lift what they call these pods, which are these small shelving units that have all the items that they need to pack. And it means the warehouse can be extremely compact, and they can move around the warehouse many ways. So if they are not carrying a load, they can actually go underneath everything. So they can take shortcuts to get to their destination by going underneath the shelves. Once they're loaded, they have to get out into a road and do the movement that way, you know, where they have wide enough lanes. And then there's like some incredible intelligence behind this, what is really a hive that's moving all these things around to get it to the packers in time with what they need. Now, if you'll kind of notice, I'm not sure how they organize what's on the shelves, how random that is. So if you need one particular item, they bring the whole shelf out to the packer, which is rather amazing. And now, so those are bots. And if you'll know, if you've listened to Kathy Wood, and she's talked about the number of robots going into Amazon and everything else, she has mentioned that Amazon is deploying 1,000 robots a day. Okay, let me repeat that. 1,000 robots a day. That's how many. And it's those bots that they're putting in there, those Kiva bots, because they want to have several million within a couple of years, which means 1,000 a day. They can do about 365,000 bots a year at that rate. So, I mean, it seems insane when you talk about a daily rate. But in order to get to a couple of million, you would have to deploy even more per day if you wanted to do that in 1 year. So that's why they have so many of them, because every time they build the warehouses, they're doing this because it seems to make sense for them. And they're designed specifically for the job. I think they might have about 6 wheels underneath them, and the wheels are probably not much bigger than that or something like that. They're not going to be huge things. So the whole idea is to be very small. I think they can work for close to 8 hours. I know they, every now and then they get a boost charge when they're sort of done bringing these things around. But obviously very mobile, specifically for that particular task. The warehouse is also designed for them. So it's not like what the old carts would have been for someone going out and then picking items off and everything else. So that means they can put more stuff into the warehouse. That's the first thing, the density.
But all it is
and
just
second is
very
the pickers.
specific. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there's pickers,
And the
but
pickers don't move.
they
I
look
mean,
like they're separate. So
the pickers are stationary. It used to be they had to walk 5 to 10 miles a day to find all the items they needed. So they had to like go here, then they had to go running over there and something else. So the idea is like, bring it to them. So they just sit there and they're just constantly pulling things off of a shelf. And next time they turn around, oh, it's a new shelf. It just keeps on moving. And so the AI behind that is also rather amazing on how they were able to program it. But you see, sometimes you can come up with something simple. Because it's so simple, you can scale it to an incredible amount. And in that warehouse, if they need to make it bigger, they just like, add a little bit more. That's it. It's incredibly scalable.
Yeah, that's what we started with. But I think that the combination of, the ability to be a picker and movable will allow it to do more things, but you don't need to over engineer it like these guys did. They're doing very well in their factory.
Yes.
So let's show
even the pickers.
Disney.
So when you even see the pickers, I mean, the one thing you notice is the picker is not like this.
Yeah.
They still need to move a few feet here and there. So they still need mobility within it. They just don't have to go 5 miles. So they always have an item right there that they're able to get, which is why they have incredible efficiency.
Okay. Let's take a look at this Disney bot, which I thought was kind of cool. Obviously, it's not meant for locomotion, but it's meant to just be small movements, probably in a home.
It's
so cute.
Bot. Yep.
Entertainment bot.
Yeah, I think it's partly for entertaining. It doesn't have arms that I can see there, but they're also trying to make sure it doesn't fall over. And I don't know if they plan on selling it yet. You bet they're going to have a TV series around it. No doubt about that.
But apparently they spent a lot of time on emotions.
Yes. And I think to make it more endearing, they're probably trying to use some sort of AI to have it learn how to walk. And they will probably put it in challenging situations just to see how it responds, because it's just going to trip every now and then or not know what to do in a certain situation because it hasn't seen it. And sometimes it's the unprogrammed things that are funnier than if they
that
go
reminds
ahead and
me
set
of
the stage.
Empire Strikes Back, the walkers. And that's why they went in the forest. But I always think that the science fiction has called it right. We're going to probably see all the things we saw in Star Wars and Star Trek. What's your thinking about that?
Oh yeah, we're getting closer and closer. You can see the inspiration that's been coming from science fiction, and a lot of times you think, that's never going to happen, or it's not going to happen in my lifetime. And now you're starting to see it, and you're seeing it coming really, really quick. And what I like about this is that the interest is not just focused in one company. There's so many people that want to do it. And you see it around the world. So the examples we had: Switzerland, Germany, China, the US. We're seeing it, obviously in entertainment. We're seeing it in industry. They're coming. There's no doubt about it. And whether it's going to be Tesla bot or not, we don't know. But it's not just Tesla bot. There's a really interesting competition heating up. And yeah, 2024 is going to be pretty interesting, because I think a lot of these things are really going to start coming. Agility is starting their production, and they're going to be selling them already. So we know they're going to be starting to hit the markets in one way. Pretty sure that Tesla will probably be having it deployed in some of the factories already. That's my feeling, that they'll have something there. I think beyond just testing it, but maybe actually doing some real useful things. And then who knows what some of these others are going to be doing. So they will become part of our daily lives. And maybe it's be through the Disney bot, maybe that's going to start to be under Christmas trees, if not this Christmas, maybe the one after it. We'll see.
Wow, that's cute. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Scott. That was good. I mean, we took a look at a bunch of wheeled robots, various sizes of wheels. We took a look at some bipedal, small ones. We saw the Kivas, which are purpose-built, They can just move and lift things, and that's about it. And then there's these small, tiny ones. And then we saw, of course, the humanoid bots. So there's going to be room for every one of these. And maybe there's even different kinds of locomotion, maybe a snake model. I know that the lab in Romella in University of UCLA, Dr. Hong, and he has 7 different robots. All of them have different ways to move. So they're all probably going to come to fruition, right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And there's also swimming bots and everything else that people are working on. So you're right. And then, of course, a lot of the drones that we see up in the air are flying bots.
Yeah.
So lots of way of doing locomotion, more than just walking. And today we just wanted to think about, okay, feet versus wheels. When does it make sense? And what's the best way to do it? And I think,
what we saw was
that yet, but boy, the researchers are working on it. Yeah.
Yeah. What we saw here is that wheels can do way more than I thought anyways. It's pretty impressive what they were able to do with it. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you so much, Scott.
Change my point of view on that.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much. See you soon.
Okay.